Welcome to today's episode of Voices of Our Time, where we explore the intricate tapestry of social issues shaping our world today. I'm your host, and today we're turning our gaze to South Africa, a country rich in cultural and historical complexity, yet mired in contemporary challenges around migration and xenophobia.
That's right. South Africa has a turbulent history with migration. Since the end of apartheid in the 1990s, the country has experienced significant changes, and unfortunately, this has included a troubling rise in xenophobia, particularly against immigrant populations.
Let's break that down for our listeners. So, xenophobia is a fear or hatred of strangers or foreigners. In South Africa, this has often manifested in violence targeting immigrants. What are some key reasons behind this?
Great question. One of the leading causal factors is what's called the economic displacement narrative. Essentially, many locals are blaming immigrants for job scarcity and competition, particularly in informal sectors like spaza shops, which are small neighborhood convenience stores. It's a classic case of scapegoating.
Scapegoating. That's a critical concept. So, while immigrants are unfairly blamed for societal issues like crime or economic downturns, it often overlooks the systemic challenges that many South Africans face. Can you share an example of how this narrative has escalated into violence?
Absolutely. A pivotal moment occurred in 2015 when Zulu King Goodwill Zwelithini made inflammatory remarks characterizing immigrants as criminals, which incited widespread violence against foreign nationals. The South African Human Rights Commission later ruled that his comments did not constitute hate speech, which is quite revealing about the legal and social frameworks surrounding these issues.
That's a significant point. It shows how elite rhetoric can amplify xenophobic sentiments and channel broader frustrations into targeted violence. And it's not just a South African issue. Other countries in the region face similar challenges, right?
Exactly. Places like Côte d'Ivoire, Kenya, and Tanzania also experience anti-immigrant hostility, albeit with different historical backdrops. But the underlying issues, economic hardship and political exploitation, tend to share a commonality across these nations.
Historically, migration has indeed shaped South Africa's identity. With early settlers like the Khoisan and Bantu peoples, through colonial and apartheid eras that enforced systemic racial segregation, the legacy of these policies still affects current immigration dynamics.
Absolutely. Apartheid forced removals created lasting economic and social exclusion for many groups. These historical tensions contribute to the current climate where marginalized citizens often see new immigrants as competitors rather than potential allies.
It's a cycle of marginalization that feeds itself. And to link this to current events, let's talk about diaspora voting rights. How has South Africa approached this issue since the end of apartheid?
Post-1994, the initial approach was quite inclusive. The African National Congress, or ANC, invested resources into enabling diaspora voting, reflecting a commitment to those who had fought against apartheid and now lived abroad. In the first democratic election, approximately 100,000 South Africans cast ballots from 78 different countries.
That sounds like a monumental achievement for a nation grappling with a violent past. But then it seems there was a shift in policy. What changed?
Well, in 1998, this inclusive approach was retracted, effectively eliminating diaspora voting. Only diplomats and military personnel could participate in elections abroad, highlighting the ANC's sensitivity to the diaspora's voting patterns as white South Africans were leaving in droves, symbolizing a perceived rejection of the ANC's leadership.
Fascinating and deeply complex. It's not just about policy, it's shaped by perceptions of identity and belonging within the South African narrative. When did the parliament take action to change these voting restrictions?
In 2009, right before elections, a group of diaspora South Africans challenged their exclusion in the Constitutional Court. The justices ruled in their favor, resulting in a reinstatement of diaspora voting rights. However, the actual implementation faced challenges, curbing participation to only about 10,000 voters at that time.
It's startling to see how logistical issues can undermine democratic engagement. How has participation fared in the following elections?
Participation has grown modestly since then, reaching around 18,000 voters in 2014. However, there's a significant trend where the majority of these votes went to the Democratic Alliance, the main opposition party, rather than the ANC. This raises further questions about the ANC's strategies and engagement with the diaspora.
I imagine that the ANC's reluctance to expand overseas voting resources also reflects deeper tensions surrounding national identity today. With these shifts in policy and perception, how is South Africa viewed among other African nations?
South Africa remains a cornerstone within the continent, with its policies influencing those of its neighbors. Countries like Ghana and Kenya are increasingly reaching out to their diaspora populations to stimulate economic contributions and cautious political participation, indicating a complex interdependence.
This interconnectivity is compelling, especially when viewed through the lens of refugee rights and status determination shifts. What developments can we examine in this area?
Refugee frameworks have evolved notably over decades. The 1951 UN Convention defined a refugee as someone with a well-founded fear of persecution. However, it focused mainly on individual cases, leaving protections for those fleeing generalized violence fairly weak.
And that brings us to the 1969 OAU Convention, doesn't it? This expanded the definition to cover those fleeing generalized violence and turmoil without needing to prove individual cases of persecution. It's a significant shift, especially in contexts of widespread conflict.
Yes, and ironically, many African countries are now shifting back to stricter interpretations. A restrictive turn is occurring where the move towards individual status determination is decreasing protection scopes, creating marked challenges for refugees on the continent.
It's a case of diminishing returns for those most in need of protection. With current statistics indicating millions of displaced persons across various countries, from South Africa to Côte d'Ivoire and Nigeria, these issues are far from abstract.
Indeed, over 3 million foreign origin individuals live in South Africa alone, creating a dynamic landscape fraught with tensions and opportunities for dialogue.
As we wrap up, it becomes clear that migration, xenophobia, and political dynamics are deeply intertwined in South Africa. This complex interaction affects not only the nation's fabric, but shapes the entire southern African region.
Absolutely. The overlapping threads of historical oppression, economic challenges, and community relations paint a vivid picture of ongoing struggles that don't have easy solutions. It's through constructive dialogues like this that we can hopefully inch forward.
Thank you for joining us today in this exploration of South Africa's migration landscape. We encourage our listeners to continue researching and engaging with these essential topics because understanding each other is the first step towards building a more inclusive society.
And as always, stay curious, and we'll see you in the next episode where we'll look at more stories from around the world that resonate with our times.